coming on the air with Wall Street going gangbusters tonight, right after that Fed rate cut, kind of the opposite of what experts had predicted. We'll talk about what it means for your money today coming up. Plus, some breaking news out of North Carolina with a new report that the controversial Republican candidate for governor there allegedly referred to himself as a black Nazi and backed reinstating slavery on a porn site's message board, according to CNN. A political earthquake now in that key battleground, what it may mean for Donald Trump's prospects there, and what the candidate himself is saying in a new video just out as he faces a midnight deadline to drop out. Also tonight, we're hearing for the first time from the family of a woman who's been detained in China for a decade. Why her family says she's under arrest and what they're doing to try to get her out now. Then, new video shows how a couple of YouTubers helped find what may be the body of the Kentucky man who shot randomly at cars on a highway after a weeks-long manhunt. The big question now, how did they solve this thing before police? And we'll take you inside the Brooklyn jail, known for its violence, where Diddy is now locked up, and how his lawyers are fighting to move him somewhere else later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air tonight with the stock market having a big boom day. Record highs after the first Federal Reserve interest rate cut in 4 years. Take a look at how the markets closed here. Both the Dow and the S&P, we're going to show you in a second, beating all-time highs. You see it here, the Dow up something like 1 and change percent, the S&P up 1.7%. This is after the move by the Fed to cut interest rates more than experts thought was coming, by 0.5% instead of a 1/4 point. And that rate cut's a big deal for all Americans because it could pave the way for lower interest rates on everything from new car loans to new mortgages to your credit card bill. All of it's happening against the backdrop of this election now, just over 6 weeks away, where we know voters are thinking about the economy, how their money's doing, how their 401ks may be doing as well. CNBC's Mike Santoli is following this for us from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Mike, we're so glad to have you with us tonight. There is some thinking, right, that a 0.5-point rate cut would spook the markets because it would signal that the Fed was a little bit concerned about the economy and where it was headed. So there were lots of eyes watching today. I know you guys at CNBC were all over this. Here we are. The markets are closing up in the green in a really positive territory. Help us understand why.
Well, Hallie, I think it starts with the preceding few days before this Fed decision yesterday, where the case started to be built by, well-connected reporters and former Fed officials and other Wall Street economists building the case for a 0.5-point cut in interest rates as more of a prudent first step toward a more normal level of interest rates, happening to preserve a soft economic landing as opposed to responding to imminent weakness. I also think that we came along with some pretty good economic data in recent days. Retail sales better than expected yesterday. We also got weekly unemployment claims today that were lower than forecast. And all that built into this idea of what Fed Chair Jay Powell had to say yesterday after the decision, when he tried to essentially convey that he views this 0.5 percentage point cut as kind of insurance and getting rates back toward normal as almost a victory lap over inflation, which, of course, the rate of inflation has come down from 9% a couple of years ago to about 2.5% right now.
So what do people need to be thinking about, right, as far as it relates to their portfolios, as far as it relates to their money? It's a fool's errand to make predictions about sort of where the markets are going and how the economy is doing, but it is undeniable that all of it's happening just about 6 weeks out from a key presidential election.
For sure. I mean, what history says is if there is no recession, let's say within the next 6 months after a Fed rate cut, stocks continue to do well. I mean, that's a big if, obviously, but right now you're not seeing in the current data anything that says we are on the precipice of a recession, which would, of course, mean the unemployment rate going up a lot from here. The Fed officials' actual outlook yesterday was for maybe unemployment to inch higher from here and then maybe stabilize. So if that comes to pass, essentially, this was more of an insurance cut. And there are going to be more to come, probably smaller ones down the road. As it comes to policy and perceptions of the economy, I mean, that's something that's kind of been in play for a while, and it's tough to change just in a few weeks.
Yeah, the way people feel about the economy versus what it's actually doing. Mike Santoli, we're so glad to have you with us tonight from down there at the Stock Exchange. Thank you. Let's take it to North Carolina with some breaking news tonight out of one of the most critical battlegrounds in this election year. What kind of feels like a political earthquake, with the controversial Republican candidate for governor there denying a new CNN report he called himself a black Nazi and backed reinstating slavery. We're talking about Mark Robinson. Right now, he is the state's lieutenant governor, and he is no stranger to controversy in the past, like with alleged Holocaust denial. He's backed policies like calling to arrest transgender women who use women's bathrooms. But this new report on CNN says Robinson posted for years on a porn site's message board, referring to himself as a perv and a black Nazi, and allegedly fetishizing transgender people, saying he enjoyed watching pornography with them. Again, Robinson is denying it all in the video that he put out right before this report dropped. Watch this.
Our opponents are desperate to shift the focus here from the substantive issues and focus on what you are concerned with to salacious tabloid trash.
Dasha Burns is joining us now. So, Dasha, walk us through some of these allegations here, how they fit into what else Robinson has said in his campaign, and how CNN sort of put the pieces on this together, they say.
Yeah, Hallie, there is a lot to parse through here. So these were made between 2008 and 2012 on a website called Nude Africa, which is a pornographic website. You talked about some of the positions that Robinson has held throughout this campaign. He's made has a history of making anti-transgender remarks, but one of the things he talked about on this website was that he enjoyed watching transgender pornography and referred to himself as a, quote, perv. He also said he didn't care if a celebrity had an abortion, saying, quote, I don't care. I just want to see the sex tape. Again, this is someone who has called for a very, very strict abortion ban. And when it comes to slavery, he wrote, quote, slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back. I would certainly buy a few. That is just some of the top lines in this really pretty shocking report, Hallie.
There is this, we have to talk about the midnight deadline in North Carolina, the timing of this, 11:59 p.m., right? So a minute before deadline for essentially the lieutenant governor, if he were to drop out of the race, to do that, in fact, and be replaced. He has been clear, right? He's not dropping out, Dasha?
That's exactly right. He's saying he's staying in the race, but no doubt pressure is building. I just got a text from the NAACP saying they're calling on him to drop out. And this is a problem for former President Trump, for his campaign, for Republicans, given the ammunition that this now gives to the Harris campaign. This is somebody that the former president has given a full-throated endorsement to, that basically every other Republican has supported as well. So this becomes really a political nightmare for the Republican Party right now.
And the Harris campaign is jumping on this here. A post out from a rapid response director says, and I'm quoting here, Donald Trump has a Mark Robinson problem. I imagine that in this very important battleground, because we have to remember that is some of the political context here, in this key battleground with Donald Trump on the ballot, of course, Kamala Harris and her campaign are clearly looking to lash these two together.
That's exactly right. And there are plenty of comments from former President Trump that they can use in order to do that. I mean, he called him, I don't know if we have the soundbite or not, but he called Robinson better than MLK. Do we have that? Could we take a listen?
This is Martin Luther King on steroids. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King ×2.
And we do have a statement from the Trump campaign at this point. We're just receiving this moments ago, saying President Trump's campaign is focused on winning the White House and saving this country. North Carolina is a vital part of that plan. We are confident as voters compare the Trump record of a strong economy, low inflation, a secure border, and safe streets with the failures of Biden-Harris. Then President Trump will win the Tar Heel state once again. We will not take our eyes off the ball. I mean, North Carolina is so critical here. And this certainly could deal a serious blow to the Trump campaign if the Harris campaign is successful in tying those two together. And again, what you just heard there, that's not the only comment from the former president praising the lieutenant governor, Hallie.
And worth noting here, too, that Robinson, according to CNN's reporting, repeatedly maligned Martin Luther King Jr. on these boards in such intense terms that a user accused him of being a white supremacist. Again, Robinson denying the accusations here. Dasha Burns, much more to follow on this one for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also tonight, both Vice President Harris and former President Trump are going to take some big swings at voters they've got to lock down. In the next couple hours, the VP is going to sit with somebody who I bet you know. It's Oprah. I'm sure you've heard of her, for this live-streamed rally in Detroit. Former President Trump, he's in Washington. You're looking live at an event he's going to speak at to court Jewish voters starting next hour. It's all happening as we are getting like an avalanche of new numbers, a whole bunch of new polling out today, giving us a snapshot of this race at the state and national level. Here's your TLDR. It is still very competitive. Right? No, there's not an indication that we see in the numbers right now that one candidate or the other is running away with this. So you see Kamala Harris there in some of the recent polling there, showing her tied or perhaps a little ahead of Donald Trump in the key state of Pennsylvania. Keep in mind, listen, this is margin of error stuff here when you look at the way that it looks in a head-to-head matchup. Nationwide, even closer, tied or up by 2 for the vice president. Again, inside that margin of error. So 47 days until the actual poll that counts happens, which is, of course, Election Day, voters actually voting. And our political desk boils it down to 3 big things. 1, they say Democrats right now are looking stronger at this moment than at any point in 2024 so far. 2, the battleground states are looking better for Vice President Harris. That is a conclusion that we can draw, again, tentatively and preliminarily from where the numbers are right now. And 3, have you heard me say this before? It's close. Okay, it's anybody's ball game. It's a jump ball. Can we be honest? Like, these are cliches, but they're cliches for a reason because they fit in this instance. Let me bring in Mike Memoli, who's following the Harris campaign for us. So with all that said, Mike, and I don't know if you've heard, did you know that the polls show that it's close? I just want to check.
It's all going to come down to turnout, Hallie.
It is? Oh, my God, ma'am. We should
the only poll that matters is on Election Day.
Let me ask you this. Because it is so close, right, it's going to be both campaigns, part of their strategy, probably a larger part on the Trump side than the Harris side, is to supercharge their base, is to make sure that the people who are already predisposed to vote for each candidate actually shows up and gets to the polls. And Oprah plays a part in that, but also the Harris campaign seems to hope in reaching some of those more moderate voters, some of those persuadable, maybe undecided, more independent-minded voters, right?
Yeah, Hallie, what I find so interesting is that the Harris campaign is talking about tonight's event with Oprah in the way that the Biden campaign before it used to talk about this campaign writ large, which was to say that there are a lot of voters out there who, frankly, aren't political, who aren't following these polls the way that you and I are, that haven't even, frankly, been following this campaign very closely, and that Oprah is sort of a gateway into reaching those kinds of voters, the ones who will be tuning in the coming weeks and probably will decide this election, especially in some of those key battleground states like Michigan, where this event is taking place. The Harris campaign is saying that there have already been 200,000 people that have registered to watch this event virtually. They expect thousands more will be tuning in more organically in real time. There are going to be some people in the room as well. But their research shows that the kinds of voters that Oprah can help them reach are exactly those kinds of, not necessarily swing voters, because that speaks to people who may be changing their minds, but those who haven't really tuned in the first place, and they think that's a really mission-critical operation at this point.
Let me, as we talk about some of where the race is right now, 47 days out, let me put up some numbers showing that were put together from Howard University, of course, Harris's alma mater. You see it here. She's getting something like 82%, they say, of black voters across 7 key swing states. But look at our exit polls 4 years ago showing that President Biden won 87% of black voters. Is there any concern that you're picking up from inside the campaign that she may be losing ground with a critical constituency here?
Yeah, absolutely. And the vice president herself has said she can't take any group for granted, even black voters. That's why you saw her speaking to the National Association of Black Journalists this week. She and President Biden, spoke at the Congressional Black Caucus's dinner over the weekend. And we talked not just about the role of black voters in big swing states like Michigan, like Pennsylvania, but look at some of those states that the Harris campaign is hoping to go on offense on. North Carolina, which, of course, Trump narrowly won 4 years ago, and Georgia, which President Biden had flipped from the Republican column for decades for the first time. And those are states where the black vote is a much bigger percentage of the vote, and they think they can make inroads there.
Mike Memoli live for us in Washington. Thank you. Vaughn Hilliard is also in Washington. He is at that Trump event we just told you about. Talk us through the dynamics here, why he's here. Listen, the District of Columbia is obviously not swingy, if you will, setting aside the vote piece of it. But talk us through the dynamics when it comes to Jewish voters, when it comes to some of the important people who are attuned to what he's saying to this voting bloc as well.
Hallie, I lost you on that last bit of the question, but you were talking about the District of Columbia and New York and the thought process 47 days out. Look, Donald Trump believes that he can win the state of New York. And when we go back to 2022, Donald Trump, or I should say Lee Zeldin, who was a Republican running for governor, he lost to the Democrat, Kathy Hochul, by just 5 percentage points. And there's some key congressional districts that are going to be important for Republicans to hold on to the House majority. And so for Donald Trump, his old home state, this is where he wants to ultimately go. And he's able to get throngs of support, like you saw last night. He also is using New York as a backdrop to call for the reinstatement of state and local tax deductions that he and his administration actually rolled back in 2017 as part of their tax law package. And so for Donald Trump, of course, there's plenty of days ahead. He's going to be in North Carolina on Saturday. He's going to have some more battleground states on his calendar coming very soon here. But he is here tonight at an event that is being put on by Miriam Adelson, who, of course, is the major donor to Donald Trump and Republican causes. And she is hosting this event that is combating anti-Semitism. So for him, Donald Trump is really this go-around his own campaign manager, his own chief strategist and communications director. And Donald Trump is calling the shots right now in this home stretch. We should note, at a time that several states are getting their early ballots, including the states of Wisconsin, who is getting them here just today.
Appreciate that. Von Hilliard, thank you very much. We'll talk more, I know, next hour. Let's take you overseas tonight, where Israel says 2 of its soldiers were killed as they were launching new strikes in Lebanon. I want to show you some new footage here from the Israeli military, supposedly showing them targeting Hezbollah militants. Israel says the attacks degraded, in their words, Hezbollah capabilities, with Israeli jets also flying low over Beirut, firing off flares with their engines screaming in what really amounts to a show of force. Israel recently announced their fighting has entered a new phase as they turn their focus from Gaza to Hezbollah fighters. And it's not just Israel signaling an escalation here. The Hezbollah head giving a big speech in the capital of Beirut today, calling, those pager, walkie-talkie, those deadly device explosions there, an act of war.
This will be confronted with a severe reckoning and a just retribution in expected and unexpected ways. The news will be what you see, not what you hear.
NBC's Keir Simmons is in Beirut for us tonight. Keir, talk us through this moment. We talk a lot about how this region is a tinderbox, but obviously the events over the last 48, 72 hours now are significantly more intense.
Yeah, the Israeli Air Force just before you and I began to talk, Hallie, that it has struck hundreds of Hezbollah rocket launcher barrels that it says were ready to be used immediately. So, yeah, further clashes along what is the southern border here in Lebanon, the northern border for Israel. It is a tense atmosphere. It has honestly been a tense atmosphere for almost a year now, since October 7th. It has not escalated into a full-scale war. Continuing question being, will it? And if it will, when will it? The fundamental question there on the border is that there are, and their estimates vary, maybe somewhere more than 60,000 Israelis who aren't in their homes along that border. There are Lebanese who are not in their homes too. And what Israel says is that it is determined to ensure that its people can go back to their homes. What we heard Hassan Nasrallah say in his speech on the television today from a secret location, the leader of Hezbollah, what we heard him say is that, well, we're not going to allow that to happen until there is a resolution to the conflict in Gaza for the Palestinians. But what he didn't do, though, is come on air and say we are launching a war. And that is significant. I mean, you might say he wouldn't say that, and he reserved the right to strike back at any stage. But he didn't say that, and I think that will be taken as a sign that once again Hezbollah is looking not to escalate. You could argue that what's happened the past few days has shown Hezbollah how dangerous an escalation with Israel could be.
Well, is there any sense here, Keir, or I guess based on the reporting that you've done, I'd be curious to know how impactful those device explosions in Lebanon are now to the capabilities of Hezbollah?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have to guess, don't we? But
yeah.
I don't think it's difficult to guess that it will have had an impact. And actually, Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, said today, look, we've been struck. He was kind of honest about that, if you like. Inevitably, the idea that your pager or your radio could explode at any moment is going to have an impact on your capabilities if you are Hezbollah. So, yes. But one of the questions here is whether this is a tactical move by the Israelis. If it is the Israelis, they haven't admitted it, though everyone is pointing in that direction, of course, or whether it's actually strategic. And we have heard from a former Israeli defense official who has told NBC News that, in fact, they needed to carry out these explosions because they were running out of time, the ability to actually do it. It was a use it or lose it situation. And if that is the case, then that suggests that this is not an indication, although we have, as you mentioned at the top there, heard from the Israeli Defense Minister suggesting there's a shift in this war. But that suggests this is not an indication that Israel is getting ready to cross that border that is not far from here to the north of Israel.
Keir Simmons, live for us there in Beirut tonight. Keir, thank you. Now to a new damning allegation in that Titan submersible hearing that apparently the sub malfunctioned just days before that deadly implosion on its way to view the wreck of the Titanic. That's come from testimony today from the OceanGate scientific director, who says the company's co-founder, Stockton Rush, crashed the sub during this particular incident. Nobody was hurt, but he told this Coast Guard panel that the crash sent passengers tumbling around inside. And a former mission specialist for the company actually breaking down in tears, remembering the victim's final moments.
They were just very happy to go. And that's the memory I have. Nobody was really nervous. They were excited about what they're going to see, make sure you have your camera, that type of thing.
Jesse Kirsch is all over this one for us tonight. So, Jesse, talk us through the testimony from her, because obviously emotion there, but some other information that came out from her as well, right?
Yeah, so, this is someone who went down to Titanic on a previous mission before what wound up being its last fatal dive, Titan's last fatal dive. And she spoke about from her perspective as someone going on this mission, Hallie, being clear-eyed about the risks she was taking and speaking to what she sees as the benefits for humankind to have people taking on this kind of risk. Here's part of that testimony.
You're in a very remote area in the North Atlantic trying to do something that is very few people can do. Problems arise. This is never really sold as a Disney ride.
She also at one point said that if people weren't taking on risks and doing this kind of work, we would still think the Earth was flat. And so, feeds into the debate over who responsibility lies on taking these kinds of risks on. And going back to that scientific director, I want to note one thing he was asked about. He was asked about if he had any conversations with the CEO, Stockton Rush, who was one of the people who died, about the lifespan potential for the Titan submersible. And he said that he had asked Stockton Rush about how long he thinks the Titan would be able to work before it would need to be refurbished. And according to this scientific director who testified in front of this panel today, the answer from the CEO was indefinite. In other words, the CEO's perspective was that this submersible could be used indefinitely without needing refurbishment, just adding to the questions and potential for any warning signs and red flags that may have been ignored around this as this inquiry panel continues. Hallie.
Jesse Kirsch, thank you for that update. We'll keep an eye on this hearing as it continues for the next week or so. Appreciate it. Still ahead here on the show, an NBC News investigation exposing a Texas medical center for making money off unclaimed bodies. But the family of a man whose body was sold for research without them knowing about it is telling us tonight, and the new national moves coming up. Plus, Diddy, he's behind bars, but we're getting a closer look at the jail that he and some other famous inmates are in and how it got the nickname Hell on Earth. Diddy tonight is still behind bars after a judge denied his request for bail a second time. And the place where Sean Combs is now locked up is getting a lot of attention, as you might imagine. The Metropolitan Detention Center, the MDC, the only federal jail in New York City, is known for violence, poor conditions, and a string of celebrity detainees. Yasmin Vasugian is there for us tonight. And Yasmin, Diddy's attorneys want him out?
Yeah. They want him out, but so far he's going to be inside those walls, Hal, for the foreseeable future until he goes to trial. Of course, there's going to be some appeals, but nonetheless, a lot happening behind those walls. And Diddy, not the only high-profile person that has served time in this prison, Hal. Take a look.
From his $48 million Miami mansion to hell on earth where chaos reigns. Just some of the words used to describe the Metropolitan Detention Center where Sean Diddy Combs is now being held without bail after pleading not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering charges.
Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct.
He is not the first high-profile inmate to pass through these walls. Ghislaine Maxwell, R. Kelly, Pharma Bro, Martin Shkreli, and crypto fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried, all as they waited for their federal criminal trials, called this jail home. But the conditions of the prison are far from homey, notoriously described as, quote, dreadful, as one judge put it. Some on the bench have even moved away from sending nonviolent defendants there. In April, a group of detainees that prosecutors said were MS-13 gang members in court documents stabbed an inmate 44 times in an attack caught on camera. 2 shivs were recovered from the attack. You see them here. The victim survived. And in the last 3 years alone, 4 inmates have died by suicide. And violence is not the only issue. Accusations of medical neglect, staffing shortages, smuggling of drugs, some allegedly facilitated by employees. At least 6 staff members charged with crimes in the last 5 years, according to the AP. Some accused of accepting bribes and providing contraband.
I've had clients describe NBC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in.
Lance A. Clark is a federal defense attorney who's been there many times.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
Occupy the streets until they get heat.
In the winter of 2019, protests over a power outage left inmates without light or heat for a week in the cold.
I understand how cold it must be in those cells, and not to have any electricity, any lights, and to not be able to communicate with your family is just inhumane.
The prison has about 1,200 detainees and is the only federal prison in the nation's largest city. The DOJ shut down New York City's other federal jail, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, back in 2021, 2 years after Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide there. A Bureau of Prisons spokesman telling NBC News they, quote, take seriously addressing the staffing and other challenges at MDC Brooklyn, adding the director appointed an urgent action team and they've increased staffing.
MDC has historically had tremendous problems, and the problems aren't resolved.
Combs' lawyers originally hoping he could await trial under house arrest at his mansion, now arguing for him to be moved to a prison in New Jersey in the lead up to this trial, citing the prison's poor conditions, violence, and deaths. On Wednesday, his lawyer said he was being held in a special housing unit with an extra level of security.
Yasmin's back with us now. So what is next? Is he going to be in jail in this facility until the trial begins? Is there a chance he could, get moved earlier than that?
As of this moment, as of this hour, as of today, yes. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to be appealing this thing next to the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to overturn the judge's order here to try and get him actually released to his mansion on $50 million bail, wanting a GPS monitoring system, limited visits from family members, friends, so on and so forth. That is what they're proposing because of course, the violence I talked about in that piece inside these jail walls. They also, in the meantime, Hal, want to get him moved to a jail and/or prison in New Jersey. The judge so far has essentially said that is up to the Bureau of Prisons to make that decision. Nonetheless, it's all going to be on appeals leading up to the trial. His next court appearance, by the way, October 9th. So looking for that, of course, and any decisions coming out from the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on this order.
Yasmin Vasugian live for us there in Brooklyn. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1. Alaska police arresting somebody for making death threats against 6 of the Supreme Court justices and their families. According to court documents, he sent more than 400 messages to the court since March of 2023 that included racial, homophobic, and misogynistic slurs in addition to the threats. The suspects pleaded not guilty to multiple charges. Number 2, police in Texas say they've found human remains inside the car at the center of that pipeline explosion and say the case has now turned into a criminal investigation. Remember, we showed you this earlier in the week, that pipeline, you see the flames exploding from it, forcing people in the area to evacuate, shutting down big roads and triggering power outages. Number 3, the CDC tonight is reporting more than 14,000 cases of whooping cough, about 4 times as many cases when you look at last year. Doctors say we may be seeing that because of more vaccine hesitancy since the COVID pandemic. Number 4, a federal judge is extending a temporary block against President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. According to CNBC, the decision's in response to a lawsuit brought by Republican-led states, which claim the administration's debt cancellation push is not legal. So that means 14 days still blocked. Number 5, police in the UK say a prolific shoplifter is now banned from all but 3 stores there after 170 convictions. So this is a video of her suspected shoplifting from back in April. She apparently usually wears disguises to avoid getting recognized, but still police have arrested her something like 400 times. Coming up later in the show, a 2-week manhunt in Kentucky finally coming to an end, but not because of the cops. We're going to tell you how YouTube sleuths cracked the case. And in the local, some pretty wild footage from an attempted robbery in Maryland. Look at this. We'll tell you why these thieves made off with zip, zero, nada. Tonight, experts are calling for a national ban on the types of programs at the center of a huge NBC News investigation. A medical center in Texas, that's what it's focused on, that's been making money by dissecting, studying, and leasing out the bodies of people who died without being claimed, oftentimes without their family members even knowing about it. This call for a national ban on this is in the hopes of avoiding what happened to people like Michael Coleman. His family spent months looking for him after he didn't come home one day in October of last year. His fiancée, Louisa Harvey, didn't find out he died until March of this year, but by then, it was too late. The medical examiner had already sent Coleman's body to the University of North Texas Health Science Center. Here's what Harvey told our Liz Kreutz.
I told that lady, give his body back. I'll pay to get his body cremated, or I will bury his body. Just give him back. And she's like, well, no, because he was donated to us. That's how they treat him, like he wasn't nothing, when he was everything to me.
Local officials and officials of the Health Science Center have declined NBC News' requests for interviews. We should note that the center suspended its program after the NBC investigation. Liz Kreutz is joining us now. And Liz, we saw a piece of that interview there. And Coleman's family says they did everything that they could to try to find him. But it turns out if records had been filed differently, there may have been a chance. How is it that he still ended up in this program?
Yeah, Hallie, that's the big question. That's the question that the family really wants answered, because it feels like almost every single step of the way, the system failed them in many ways. They did everything that they thought they would do to make sure he didn't end up in a program like this. They filed a missing persons report. They went searching for him. They called hospitals. They called the police. He still ended up in this program. And even when they called to try to get his body back, they were told he was already being prepared for use in a 12 to 24-month program. And Hallie, the bigger part of this is that he is among hundreds of people NBC News has learned that have been deemed unclaimed in the Dallas-Fort Worth region and were given over to this state medical school for their own use, where they were making money off taking those people's body parts and sending them to different medical training centers across the country, all without their consent. In some cases, like with Michael Coleman, without their knowledge, and literally as the families were searching for them. And Hallie, as we've reported, since this reporting came out, as our team here has been digging into this, the medical center decided, because of these findings, that they were going to abruptly suspend the program. So change has been made here, but there are still a lot of questions left unanswered.
Well, so this is part of it, right, is that these kinds of programs in many states are legal, even as more and more experts see it as not ethical here. Talk us through that dynamic.
Right. Right, Hallie. So this is actually legal to use unclaimed body parts, or the parts of unclaimed people, in nearly every single state nationwide. But there is a growing belief among many in the medical community that this is not ethical. And I did speak to a bioethicist who asked that question. What do we owe the dead, and what do we owe their loved ones? And she is calling for a national ban, particularly because the people this is impacting are often people who are poor, people of color, marginalized communities. Take a listen to what she had to say.
A local med school has justified this practice to me in terms of it diversifying their cadaver lab. They'll come out and say, this is a great way for our students to get training on black bodies. But I don't think that that's a feather in your cap if you've just taken that black body.
Right. Without consent.
Without consent or permission from their next of kin.
And she calls this modern day grave robbing. Now, Hallie, there's actually no national data on how common this is. So NBC News, our team, reached out to 51 major U.S. medical schools to ask if they do use unclaimed bodies. 44 responded to say that they do not, but the rest did not answer.
Liz Kreutz, just incredibly important reporting from you and the team that's on this. Mike Hixenbaugh, John Schuppe, and others. Thank you. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, officials are investigating after inmates allegedly stabbed 2 corrections officers inside a Massachusetts prison. They are performing routine rounds when they were attacked. 3 other officers were also hurt, they say. Union officials say they've been warning about problems at this prison for years. 4 of the officers are fine. A 5th is in serious but stable condition. Out of our Western Bureau, the LA Health Department is now confirming 3 people there have been infected with dengue fever, even though they didn't go to spots where dengue fever is more common. Officials say local transmission is very rare and that they're investigating at least 2 additional cases. And out of our Northeast Bureau, look at this security camera footage catching a group of thieves, basically slamming their truck into a grocery store in Maryland. Okay, why? Well, they're trying to steal money out of the ATM. They couldn't do it. They're smashing it with whatever there. They try to get it. They can't, so they just left. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but police are still looking for these suspects. I want to show you some other new video tonight of the dramatic moments a pair of YouTube sleuths in Kentucky helped find what officials believe is the body of a suspected highway shooter. I want you to watch this.
He's deteriorated!
Oh, my Lanta. Oh, my Lanta. Ow, sticker virus. Oh, gosh. Look.
So that was the moment that this couple spotted the body while they were live streaming. We've obviously blurred when we showed you that video, the part where you can see it. Remember, police had been looking for this suspect, Joseph Couch, for nearly 2 weeks. They say he had perched himself on a cliff overlooking the highway a little bit outside the city of London, so south of Lexington there, and started shooting at passing cars. 5 people were seriously hurt. There had been this weeks-long manhunt. Adrian Broaddus is joining us now, and a manhunt that is coming to an end in a very interesting way. The community there obviously breathing a sigh of relief, but how is it that these YouTube sleuths seem to be able to make more progress than local police did?
Hallie, indeed, an end to a frightening chapter for folks there in Laurel County, Kentucky. Listen, both investigators and Fred and Sheila McCoy were searching in that area. And not only were police searching, we know they were looking for nearly 2 weeks using helicopters, thermal imaging, and drones. There has been some criticism, some backlash online after the discovery of that body, which we're still waiting for police to confirm the identity through DNA testing. But the McCoys had been out there, they say, searching for 6 days. And a lot like police, they used clues in the sky. Take a listen.
We've gotten calls and texts from people saying, thank you so much. Now I can sleep at night. You're our heroes. We can't believe you did that.
People that know us, they commented and they said, if anybody will find it, it'd be Fred and Sheila. We're pretty good investigators.
My understanding is that it was in a very challenging place. I know the state troopers were also looking in that area. And I know the general area had been searched before, but it was very, very thick.
And Hallie, after 40 years, Fred told me he retired from law enforcement. His wife, Sheila, worked in education, and a big draw for them was everything shutting down in the community, especially the schools. Sheila said she knows a lot of students depend on their school lunches, and that is what led them to search for Joseph Couch.
Adrian Broaddus, thank you very much for looking into that one for us. Appreciate it. We got a lot more to get to here on the show, including an American woman's family calling for her release from a Chinese prison. Why they say she was scammed into a life sentence. The stunning details coming up. Tonight, the family of a Chicago woman is calling for her to be freed from a prison in China, saying she's been there for 10 years because she was scammed. Here's what they say happened to her. We're talking about Dawn Michelle Hunt. She thought she won a free trip to Australia in 2014, but was told she had to pick up a bag of prize documents in China on the way first. The bags she picked up apparently had drugs in them. More than 4 pounds of meth, according to Chinese officials. She was arrested. She was sentenced to life in prison. Her family now says she's very sick behind bars, and they want her home. Watch.
The last time I talked to Dawn was about a year ago. I pray to God to send her back so we will be reunited.
She's one of the more than 300 Americans imprisoned in China right now, with some of their families testifying in front of Congress, pushing for their release. Maura Barrett is joining us now. Where do things stand in the push to get her back home?
Well, Hallie, I should note that a bulk of the information that we have about this situation is coming from Dawn Hunt's family here in Chicago. They're only just speaking out about it now, even though she was originally arrested 10 years ago, because they were scared to speak out earlier because of fear of retaliation. But they just got a letter from Hunt recently detailing some specifics of her medical issues. She apparently has tumors on her uterus, and she doesn't trust the medical situation at the Chinese prison. So they're hoping to get her home to get that medical care. I want you to hear from an interview with her father, Gene. One of our colleagues at WMAQ, the affiliate here, spoke with him earlier today, where he kind of played out how all of this happened 10 years ago.
My daughter's been arrested in China. She's been duped to get there under the pretext that she was a beauty queen and had won a contest. And she told me that she wanted to go to China to get her reward. She said, I checked on the internet, and it's allegedly reported to be a legitimate company.
Her family has been able to visit her, talk to her on the phone occasionally, write letters, but this case hasn't attracted the same attention as, say, Brittany Griner or reporter Evan Gershkovich, obviously, but that was in Russia. This is China. There isn't a bilateral prison trade agreement between the U.S. and China, so that's where things get a little tricky. Now, we had reached out to the State Department. They did confirm that her detention is accurate, and they said that they stand ready to provide consular assistance, which means that they're routinely checking in on her treatment, her health, her safety. They most recently visited in July of 2024. But the thing is here is the U.S. government does not recognize her as one of those wrongfully detained, and that designation is what provides families with special support services that this family's not getting.
Got it. Maura Barrett, thank you for being on top of that story for us. We appreciate it. We've got a lot more to get to here on the show, including when rent costs went up all across the country, one city saw them go down. Why they may have uncovered the roadmap to cheaper housing. Next. To tonight's original now, with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's how much you spend on where you live. That's because we've got some new numbers out today showing that the number of home sales across the country has dropped more than people thought. It's like 4% lower in August compared to last year at the same time. And that sort of lack of movement, right, it's sending home prices high. Way high, to a new record high. Right now, the average house, like if you're looking to buy a house, you know this, the average house costs people more than $500,000. You saw what it cost back in 2019, about $376,000. Listen, this is not hot scoops. This is not breaking news. We know how expensive houses are these days. So what's the solution? Our team's taking you to one city that has seen a 0% roughly rise in rents. No rise in the average rent since before the pandemic. It's Minneapolis, where there's a big push to build more. Here's NBC's Brian Chung.
On this block in northeast Minneapolis, there are all types of houses. A yellow one, a white one, a brown one. But it's the blue one that's shaking up the neighborhood. Cody Fisher is the developer behind it.
Yeah, this is Solstice Northeast, 23-unit, 4-story building, ultra energy efficient, solar powered, all electric.
Let's go check it out.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's got a few bells and whistles. Bike racks, dog wash station.
We have 23 units, 22 of them are occupied.
But it's the building's location that makes this apartment complex so unique, because it sits on the lot that was formerly a single-family home.
So this building could not have existed in this neighborhood on this plot 7 years ago?
Absolutely not. It was a combination of zoning and parking requirements. It just wouldn't have been possible.
Possible because of a plan known as Minneapolis 2040. In addition to investing $360 million into affordable rental housing since 2018, Mayor Jacob Fry in the city also sought to change the rules. Literally.
We also wanted to expand the supply generally. That meant sometimes putting up additional density on commercial corridors. Sometimes that meant making a single-family home a duplex or a triplex.
When the city passed the plan, Minneapolis became the first major city in the U.S. to eliminate single-family exclusive zoning. Since implemented, rents across the country have skyrocketed, according to Apartment List data, up 22% nationally. But here in Minneapolis, rents actually fell by 4%, as the city added more than 10% in new housing units.
You build more dense, you can build more cheaply, that is more affordably, and it allows easier access, more affordable access for people who are interested in buying homes.
But it also set off a firestorm.
To turn a home into a 24-unit building is not right.
Impacts on all of our privacy.
Has zero parking. We're against development on this scale.
When we first proposed it, we certainly saw signs popping up all over Minneapolis saying, "Don't bulldoze my neighborhood."
Across the street from the new Solstice Apartments, the sign's a little different. Stop the Northeast land grab. A one-bedroom here rents for $1,700, which not everybody thinks is so cheap.
A little bit controversial was an understatement. The folks on the block really did not want this apartment building here.
Jeremy Whelan lives a block up from the new building and doesn't like the new project either. He says that he worries the building, which didn't come with off-street parking, will make traffic in the area worse.
For some that might, on the surface, think that's a not in my backyard type of view, what would the response be?
Well, for the record, the building over there is in my backyard and I like it, and down there, it's in my backyard and I don't like it. So it's always going to be about the specific instance.
And although Minneapolis 2040 is by name a city measure, Governor Walz and the state legislature moved to protect the plan from litigation. And Walz and Harris are now proposing a bold plan to build 3 million housing units nationwide, in addition to $25,000 in assistance for first-time homebuyers. Even former President Obama hopping on the train to build more at the DNC.
If we want to make it easier for more young people to buy a home, we need to build more units.
Mayor Fry welcomes the national attention.
He has been characterized, the governor, as arguably the first YIMBY, yes in my backyard candidate. Did that YIMBYism come from you in Minneapolis, here in the city?
Well, it would make me feel pretty damn good if it did.
Brian is back. He is joining us now. And Brian, if this plan is working to keep rent prices down, what's the case against it?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there are a number of parties. You heard from the neighbors who say, look, this doesn't fit the character of our neighborhood. We're worried about traffic and parking. But then you also have environmental groups. Interestingly, there were some environmental groups that sued the city of Minneapolis, claiming that the city didn't provide enough evidence that there was going to be a positive environmental impact of all of this. A court actually ended up putting the Minneapolis plan on hold for a number of years before Tim Walz and the state legislature moved to basically protect the plan. Lastly, there's also the home builders who in some cases have a financial incentive not to build more in some areas because maybe that could bring prices down. That would make it less affordable or really economically viable for them to build those properties. There's many different types of people who might oppose this type of thing, but it's interesting to know it's not really on party lines. Minneapolis is a very blue city. You have many Democrats who are in those neighborhoods, deeply blue areas that say, I don't necessarily know if I want this in my backyard.
That's a great point. Brian Chung, thank you very much. Good to see you, as always. That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coming up next, and I will see you back, of course, on Sunday on the Nightly News and back here Monday on NBC News Now. Coverage picks up right now. We're coming on the air with some breaking news out of a key battleground state with a new report that the controversial Republican candidate for governor in North Carolina allegedly refers to himself as a black Nazi, or did, and expressed support for reinstating slavery on a porn site's message board, according to CNN. We're going to talk through what it means for the political dynamics in that state and what this midnight deadline for him to drop out or else could do. Also tonight, the two people who want to win North Carolina speaking live to a couple key voting groups. Vice President Harris set to talk with Oprah, as we'll take you live to former President Trump's talk with Jewish voters here in D.C. We're also hearing for the first time from the family of a woman who's been detained in China for a decade. But her family says she's under arrest and what they're doing to try to get her out now. Plus, we're going to take you inside the Brooklyn jail known for its violence, where Diddy is now locked up. how his lawyers are fighting to try to move him somewhere else, and the emotional testimony tonight in that Titan submersible hearing that some former employees are saying about the conditions right before that deadly implosion later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air with some breaking news out of one of the most important battleground states this election year. What could maybe be a political earthquake, with the controversial Republican candidate for governor now denying a new CNN report that he called himself a black Nazi and backed reinstating slavery. We're talking about Mark Robinson, and right now he is the lieutenant governor in the state, no stranger to controversy like alleged Holocaust denial. He's backed policies like calling to arrest transgender women who use women's bathrooms. But this new report on CNN says Robinson posted for years on a porn site's message board, referring to himself as a perv, as a black Nazi, allegedly fetishizing transgender people, saying he enjoyed watching porn with them. Again, Robinson is denying all of this. He put out a video right before this report dropped out. I want to play a little bit.
Our opponents are desperate to shift the focus here from the substantive issues and focus on what you are concerned with to salacious tabloid trash.
I want to bring in Laura Jarrett, who's covering this story. She's joining us now. And Laura, part of the dynamic here is that when Mark Robinson talks about substantive issues, some of what is alleged in this new reporting relates back to some of the policy positions, the conservative positions that he has staked out.
Policy positions like abortion, Hallie. He is someone who has at least publicly expressed that he supports an abortion ban in that state starting at around 6 weeks when you can detect a fetal heartbeat. And yet in these posts that CNN has surfaced, and again, we haven't independently corroborated and surfaced them ourselves, but according to CNN's reporting, they found posts of him suggesting he didn't care if a celebrity got an abortion, saying, I don't care, I just want to see the sex tape. That's just on the issue as it relates to abortion. There's also plenty as it relates to slavery that is particularly incendiary, saying slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back. I would certainly buy a few. Now, the way that CNN managed to trace this down, CNN's K-file teams, you see the username right there? He's using it all over the internet, Hallie. So when he's posting product reviews for Amazon, he's using the same username. That's how they were able to tie it all together. We obviously reached out. CNN reached out. He completely denies this, says it simply is not him. They have the wrong guy, Hallie.
As somebody, Laura, who is often looking into sort of the legal piece of political things for us, talk us through some of the dynamics inside North Carolina, the legalities of the balloting here, because this is all coming down to 11:59 p.m., Laura. He faces a deadline to drop out. Otherwise, he stays on the ballot, right?
That's part of why the reporting, the timing here is so key, Hallie. Obviously, no Republican, at least publicly, is saying he should drop out. But behind the scenes, you know there's got to be a scramble, because if he doesn't drop out by 11:59 tonight, Republicans are stuck with him. They're basically stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if he drops out tonight, they got to try to find someone new. But even if they find someone new, his name still appears on the ballot because it's now so late. They can't reprint the ballots with a different name. And so they're in a pretty tricky political position here. But again, he is vowing not to drop out.
Laura Jarrett, live for us with all of this. Laura, look for more of your reporting coming up tonight on Nightly. Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to get to what Vice President Harris and former President Trump are both saying about this as they're taking some big swings at voters they've got to lock down. In the next couple of hours, the VP is going to sit down with somebody. You might recognize her name or her face. There she is on the right side of your screen in the purple. Yes, that's Oprah. She was speaking, of course, at the Democratic National Convention. She will now be speaking with Harris tonight to try to boost turnout. Former President Trump is in Washington. I want to show you this live shot here. He's going to be speaking at an event to court Jewish voters any minute now. All of it as we're getting, boy, an avalanche, a slew, I don't know, a whole bunch of new polling in, giving us a snapshot of where this race stands. In key battlegrounds like Pennsylvania, where you can see Harris has a slight lead, about 4 points over former President Trump, again, inside the margin of error. Same deal when you look at some of the national numbers. She's tied in some of those polls, too. It's like a 1 or 2 point race. TLDR, right? Let's just get it. It is super competitive. It's all inside the margin of error here for the most part. So very, very close. But our political desk is able to draw a couple of conclusions from this, our political unit. First, the Democrats look stronger in the polling here at this moment than at any point in 2024. Second, that the battleground states are looking better for Vice President Kamala Harris than they did. And third, have you heard me say this before? It's a jump ball. It's super close. It's very competitive. Am I a broken record? Maybe, but like I at least want to be realistic with you about why we're being a broken record. Let me get to some of our correspondents who are covering all of this here as we brace for the possibility we may not have a call on who wins until the morning after Election Day or longer. Gabe Gutierrez is at the White House. Vaughn Hilliard's at that Trump event. Gabe, let me start with you. And I actually want to start with something that has happened new just today. You heard Laura Jarrett talk about it right at the top of the show. And you've now got the Harris campaign responding to this sort of North Carolina dynamic. This is a really important state. It's a state that they would love to flip, of course. It's a state where we've seen the candidates spend some time. And now they are clearly looking, based on this tweet from the Rapid Response Director, to lash Donald Trump to Mark Robinson there. Give us a sense of just the dynamics of the push for that state and others as Vice President Harris is going to be with Oprah to really try to boost turnout.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Hallie. And look, this seems in some ways like a gift to the Harris campaign, doesn't it? Because they're going to try and tie Donald Trump to Robinson, who he has, compared to Martin Luther King before. So certainly the Harris campaign is looking at this as a key opportunity. In North Carolina, of course, being such a key swing state. You just see one of the Harris advisors right there for her campaign saying Donald Trump has a Mark Robinson problem. So expect more of that messaging over the coming days. But you mentioned Oprah. Yes, another key swing state, Michigan. She already has landed in Michigan just a short time ago. She plans to hold this virtual rally tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern with Oprah, someone who needs no introduction. Of course, this comes just weeks after that surprise appearance by Oprah at the Democratic National Convention. Now, campaign advisors say that they've already had some 200,000 or nearly 200,000 RSVPs to this event. They plan to live stream it on multiple platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. And look, some of the topics that are likely to come up, the big push that Kamala Harris has been making on reproductive rights, certainly that will be a key issue. She's heading to Georgia tomorrow to hit that theme as well. She's also heading to battleground Wisconsin tomorrow. So the vice president certainly hitting several key battlegrounds here at the end of this week, Hallie.
Of course, choosing Detroit is intentional here. It is a city with a large black population in a key swing state.
Oh, of course. I mean, look, and it's a state that she, as we've been reporting, she really needs to win. Part of that so-called blue wall. You just see the likely poll, the latest polls right there from Quinnipiac. Yes, she has opened up a slight edge over Donald Trump, but it is within the margin of error. She is doing better, though, than President Biden was doing. But I should mention, Hallie, she is facing some criticism from her left flank, the uncommitted movement. You'll remember back during the primary when President Biden was running, the uncommitted movement got more than 100,000 people to vote, basically in protest of his policies in the Israel-Hamas war, putting up their statement that they just put out regarding Vice President Harris. They say her unwillingness to shift on unconditional weapons policy or to even make a clear campaign statement in support of upholding existing U.S. and international human rights law has made it impossible for us to endorse her. Again, that is the uncommitted movement. But critically, Hallie, while they are not endorsing Kamala Harris, they are also urging people to vote against Donald Trump. So they're really trying to walk that fine line. They don't want former President Trump back in the White House. They think that he would not, not be good for their movement, obviously. But they just rhetorically say they just can't endorse Kamala Harris because, in their view, she is continuing the policies of the Biden administration, which they strongly disagree with, Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez there for us on the North Lawn of the White House. Gabe, it's great to see you, friend, as always. Appreciate it. Let's go to the other side of the aisle with Vaughn Hilliard, because in just the last little bit, Vaughn, we've got some new reporting here that House Speaker Mike Johnson is going to meet with former President Trump while he's in D.C. to talk about this threat to shut down the government. This is just days after the speaker was down in Mar-a-Lago, of course, on the day of what the FBI describes as that second assassination attempt against Donald Trump. What's the play here? What's the dynamic? What's with this?
This is actually a big meeting here, Hallie. As our great team on Capitol Hill has been reporting, September 30th is the deadline for government funding right now. So it's up to the members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, to come up with a government funding extension beyond the end of this month. And Donald Trump, has a very clear message on what that spending package should include. And he says it should include what is called the SAVE Act. What is the SAVE Act? Well, it's a piece of legislation that would effectively require everybody to show proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. Donald Trump is making claims that are not matched by the facts, that there are tens of thousands of undocumented individuals who are registering to vote to change the outcome of this election. And he is saying that Republicans should demand on Capitol Hill that as part of the spending package to have this piece of legislation tied to it, or they should vote no, and which would effectively lead to a government shutdown at the end of this month. And so the question is, will Republicans up on Capitol Hill follow Donald Trump's wishes, in which he has been vocal about saying that Republicans should be willing to shut down the government, or will Speaker Johnson choose to move forward despite Donald Trump's demands? And so this is going to be a meeting here in Washington, D.C. We are just about one block, literally, from the Capitol right now. We expect the former president to take the stage here in about 20 minutes. So this meeting could very well be underway at this very minute here. And that's why this is coming at such an important time with the government shutdown deadline looming just a mere 2 weeks away from now, Hallie.
Can I ask you just like a real toss question that I don't know if you're even ready to. On the government shutdown, freak out-o-meter, where are we? We're not at a 10, where are we?
We are, I think, maybe at a 7 right now. Cool. It's not alarm bells, but Republicans think that they're going to be able to push through a spending package. But at the same time, let's be very frank. Donald Trump is the leader of this Republican Party. He is their nominee. And in 47 days, he may be the president-elect. And it's these members of Congress, including Speaker Johnson, who could very well rely on having a good relationship with Donald Trump come January of 2025. And if Speaker Johnson wants to remain, if Republicans were to keep the House majority, wants to remain Speaker, he kind of needs the support of Donald Trump to do that. And so that's where it's going to be for Speaker Johnson to really walk this balance beam of Donald Trump's demands versus an understanding that, most Republicans, as well as Democrats, they want the government to not shut down. And this is where that 7 could get to an 8 or a 9 pretty quickly over the next few weeks, Hallie.
Many things I love about you, Vaughn, not just your ability to convey political thoughts and information, but also you're down to play with an impromptu armometer. So appreciate you, bud. Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Let's take it to New York, because tonight the stock market is coming off a big boom day. You got record highs after that first Fed rate cut in 4 years. Look at the markets here tonight. You had the Dow, the S&P, green, green, green. Same with the NASDAQ, beating all-time highs, the Dow and the S&P at least. The NASDAQ up something like 2.5%. This is after the Fed cut interest rates by 0.5% instead of the 1/4 point that experts thought. So everyone's like, whoa, what's the economy? What are the markets going to do now? That rate cut, it's a big deal for anybody because it could pave the way for lower interest rates on everything from new car loans to new mortgages to your credit card bill. Of course, all of it happening with the presidential election just now 6 weeks away, just about. Not that we're counting every minute and second. We do count the voters because we know that what they count on is politicians to tell them what they're going to do about the economy. That's the #1 issue, along with immigration, to them. Let me bring in CNBC's Mike Santoli, who's following this for us from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Mike, we're so glad to have you with us tonight. There is some thinking, right, that a 0.5 point rate cut would spook the markets because it would signal that the Fed was a little bit concerned about the economy and where it was headed. So there were lots of eyes watching today. I know you guys at CNBC were all over this. Here we are. The markets are closing up in the green in a really positive territory. Help us understand why.
Well, Hallie, I think it starts with the preceding few days before this Fed decision yesterday, where the case started to be built by, well-connected reporters and former Fed officials and other Wall Street economists building the case for a 0.5 point cut in interest rates as more of a prudent first step toward a more normal level of interest rates happening to preserve a soft economic landing as opposed to responding to imminent weakness. I also think that we came along with some pretty good economic data data in recent days. Retail sales better than expected. Yesterday, we also got weekly unemployment claims today that were lower than forecast. And all that built into this idea of what Fed Chair Jay Powell had to say yesterday after the decision, when he tried to essentially convey that he views this half percentage point cut as kind of insurance and getting rates back toward normal as almost a victory lap over inflation, which, of course, the rate of inflation has come down from 9% a couple of years ago to about 2.5% right now.
So what do people need to be thinking about, right, as far as it relates to their portfolios, as far as it relates to their money? It's a fool's errand to make predictions about sort of where the markets are going and how the economy is doing, but it is undeniable that all of it's happening just about 6 weeks out from a key presidential election.
For sure. I mean, what history says is if there is no recession, let's say within the next 6 months after a Fed rate cut, stocks continue to do well. I mean, that's a big if, obviously, but right now you're not seeing in the current data anything that says we are on the precipice of a recession, which would, of course, mean the unemployment rate going up a lot from here. The Fed officials' actual outlook yesterday was for maybe unemployment to inch higher from here and then maybe stabilize. So if that comes to pass, essentially, this was more of an insurance cut. And there are going to be more to come, probably smaller ones down the road. As it comes to policy and perceptions of the economy, I mean, that's something that's kind of been in play for a while, and it's tough to change just in a few weeks.
Yeah, the way people feel about the economy versus what it's actually doing. Mike Santoli, we're so glad to have you with us tonight from down there at the Stock Exchange. Thank you. Overseas tonight, Israel says 2 of its soldiers were killed as they are pummeling Hezbollah with new strikes on dozens of rocket launchers and some other so-called terrorist infrastructure belonging to the militants. All of it is just ratcheting up tensions a day after more electronic devices exploded across Lebanon. Remember, after that pager explosion this week. New footage here from Israel's military supposedly shows them targeting Hezbollah. Israel says the attacks degraded, in their words, the capabilities of the militants. Israeli jets, look at this, also flying low over Beirut, firing off flares, engines screaming in a show of force. Israel recently announced that the fighting has entered a new phase as they turn their focus from Gaza to Hezbollah to the north. And it's not just Israel signaling an escalation. The Hezbollah head giving a big speech in Beirut today, calling the deadly device explosions an act of war.
This will be confronted with a severe reckoning and a just retribution in expected and unexpected ways. The news will be what you see, not what you hear.
NBC's Keir Simon is in the Lebanese capital of Beirut. And Keir, this is not an unfamiliar place to you. You have reported from here before and from the region so many times. Can you give us a sense of the dynamics at play comparatively here? Because right now you are on the tail end of what's been an extraordinary 72 hours with that, synchronized, essentially, device explosion over the course of 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, Hallie, Israel has a history of assassinations, but we haven't seen anything like what we've seen in the past few days before, this kind of synchronized assassination, if you like. I mean, the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, saying in that speech that you just showed that there were 5,000 devices with explosives in them, and there are numbers as much as almost 3,000 wounded, as well as 37 killed. So he said in the speech that it could have been many more killed, kind of accepting that Hezbollah has been badly hit by this. And certainly the tension here, though this is a place that knows tension well, is unlike anything we have seen before. In that way, because people are saying, well, how do I know that my computer might not be booby-trapped for whatever reason? How can I trust my cell phone? I mean, I think that will be having an impact on Hezbollah, but also is certainly having an impact on the country as a whole. That being said, there has been a tense atmosphere here for almost a year, since October 7th, as the kind of fighting has continued along the border, not escalating into an all-out war, but getting close and threatening that.
So what happens? I'm not going to ask you what happens next, because I know you can't predict it. But what are people on edge about? Like, in other words, we know there's a lot of concern that this could escalate even further. Israel, as we showed, is really trying to, it seems, flex some of its military muscle here, Keir, which seems to be a signal.
Yeah, I mean, you can't predict the future, certainly not in this region, but you can talk about the past. And what we can say, categorically, is that in this past almost a year, Israel has not sent ground forces across that border for, an invasion, the like of which we have seen before, the most recent back in 2006 here into Lebanon. Hezbollah has not launched the kind of attack on Israel that would escalate this into a wider war. We did see, didn't we, earlier this year, Iran launched those direct attacks on Israel, which frankly failed because of a coalition of defences, Israel, the US and allies and partners. So what hasn't happened is, you heard Nasrallah talk about in that speech, don't listen to our words, watch our actions. Well, there have been a lot of words. There are a lot of threats. He said many red lines have been crossed, with Iran today threatening Israel with a crushing defeat after what happened with those pagers and those radio devices. But what we haven't seen that happen so far. That being said, one of the things, and we've said this many times, haven't we, one of the issues is that something happens that just sets things off, that is impossible for one side or the other or both to ignore, and we get into that full-scale war. And that is what the Secretary of State, Secretary Blinken today, and many other diplomats around the world have been working hard to try to ensure doesn't escalate.
Keir Simmons, we're glad to have you there live in Beirut, walking us through all of it. Keir, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We're taking out to a new and damning allegation in the Titan submersible hearing that apparently the sub malfunctioned just days before it imploded on its way down to view the wreck of the Titanic. The scientific director of OceanGate says the company's co-founder crashed the sub during this other incident we're talking about. At the time, nobody was hurt, but he's telling this panel, the Coast Guard panel, that the crash sent people like tumbling around inside the submersible itself. You also have a former mission specialist for the company actually breaking down in tears, remembering some of the victims' final moments.
They were just very happy to go. And that's the memory I have. Nobody was really nervous. They were excited about what they're going to see, make sure you have your camera, that type of thing.
Jesse Kirsch is following this one for us. And Jesse, I think people remember it was just about a year ago, a little over a year ago, that this sub imploded, and it captured the attention, it seemed, of the world, because there was this question of, could they still be alive after they lost contact? Then news that it had, in fact, imploded. And now here you have this Coast Guard hearing where the details coming out of it are in some ways jaw-dropping, I think, to people watching. Can you talk us through some of the key moments today and where this goes next?
Yeah, and Hallie, that incident you just referred to happened just days before what is now known to have been a fatal dive for this submersible with 5 men on board, all of them killed when that submersible imploded. And this testimony over multiple days now has highlighted a series of potential warning signs and red flags that may have been ignored around what is effectively an experimental craft. And that former scientific director that you just spoke of moments ago also shared that at one point he had a conversation with the CEO of the OceanGate, Stockton Rush, who's one of the people who was killed, and asked the CEO what he thought, how long he thought the submersible would be able to keep operating before it would need to be refurbished, is the phrase that was used. And the CEO said indefinitely. That was his perspective on this. So you can imagine, I think even if someone asked you how long you think your car could operate on the roadways, right? Cars, we had those for quite a long time. And if someone asked you how long you thought your car could operate for, would you say indefinitely? I think that raises some eyebrows. We also heard more emotional testimony from that woman who was on one of the previous successful dives down to the Titanic. Here's some more of what she shared today.
I knew what I was doing was very risky. I never at any point felt unsafe by the operation.
She also, at one point, said that she thinks that if we didn't take risks as humankind and took on some expeditions like this, that we would still think the Earth was flat. So at the heart of the debate over the risks that people should be taking on expeditions like this and others, Hallie.
Jesse Kirsch, thank you for being on top of that one. Some breaking news now out of Kentucky on that search for the body of a suspected highway shooter that went on for nearly 2 weeks. Turns out the search may not be over. That's because we are just learning new this hour that a DNA test on the body found was inconclusive, according to state police. That means they cannot say it is for sure that suspect. This is after new video showed the dramatic moments that a pair of YouTube sleuths in Kentucky helped find what officials said they thought was the body of the suspect. Watch.
He's deteriorated!
Oh, my Lanta. Oh, my Lanta. Ow, sticker virus. Oh, gosh. Look.
Adrian Broaddus is joining us now. And Adrian, this is obviously developing even in the course of the last 60 minutes here, because earlier police had suggested that they believe this was the body found of Joseph Couch, that suspect, and of course believed to have randomly shot at cars on a highway a couple weeks ago. There was this long manhunt. Now it turns out the DNA test results were inconclusive. What's going on here?
Yeah, a number of reasons or factors could lead to an inconclusive test result. So now we are still waiting to hear from the medical examiner who will do additional testing, including an autopsy. Here's what we do know. Police say despite this inconclusive DNA testing, they still believe the body that was found on Wednesday afternoon in that wooded area not far from the shooting location is believed to be that of Joseph Couch. For those of you who don't remember, about 2 weeks ago on September 7th, he sent a text message to a woman saying, in part, I am going to shoot a lot of people. Well, at least try. At least 5 people who were just driving along that highway in Kentucky that Saturday afternoon were seriously injured. At least 12 cars were hit. That prompted this statewide, this federal search for him. When I say statewide and federal, I mean state and federal resources were used to search for that 32-year-old. And yesterday, a couple who lives about an hour away was live streaming, and they stumbled across remains. Take a listen.
We've gotten calls and texts from people saying, thank you so much. Now I can sleep at night. You're our heroes. We can't believe you did that.
People that know us, they commented and they said, if anybody will find it, it'd be Fred and Sheila. We're pretty good investigators.
And you just heard from Fred and Sheila Couch. Fred told me he's a retired police officer. He spent about 40 years working in law enforcement, and his wife, Sheila, used to work in education. And they said they were compelled to help the community, especially all the schools that were closed. His wife saying, in part, so many students depend on school lunches, and that may be the only meal they receive. Now, there was a $35,000 reward offered for information leading to Couch. This couple is set to receive about $25,000. They also told me that was a big part of their decision to go out and search as well. Hallie?
The community has been, I think, on edge, is fair to say, based on some of the folks you talked to, right? And so now there's still obviously this kind of question mark here, huh?
Yeah, you know, there's that relief based on what investigators are saying, because when we heard from investigators during the news conference last night, they were confident that this body that was found is that of Joseph Couch based on the weapon that was near the body. Also, other items associated with Couch. Those items they learned about by talking to Couch's family. It's also important to underscore his family, Joseph Couch's family, had been cooperative during this entire search. His father expressing condolences for those folks who were injured. And they told investigators Couch lived with PTSD after serving in the military for nearly 4 years. What led him to start shooting at cars driving on the highway is still unclear. And unfortunately, Hallie, that may be something we never know.
Adrian Broaddus, thank you very much. We've got to get to some more breaking news out of Kentucky tonight, where a district judge, we're learning, has been shot and killed in his chambers at a county courthouse. State police say they are investigating this. They say they have one person in custody, but they haven't said who it is. The governor of the state writing there is far too much violence in this world, while confirming that he's been told about this judge, again in Letcher County, shot and killed. Earlier today, a local high school was placed on lockdown at the request of state police because of, I'm quoting, an acting shooting downtown. The students were later released. We're going to follow this story very closely. We're going to bring you more as we get more information about what exactly happened here. Still ahead, Portugal fighting more than 100 wildfires right now, declaring what they say is a state of calamity. How the country is hoping to finally get a handle on all this. Coming up. How a woman ended up in the grips of a python for hours and lived to tell the tale. But first, Portugal is in a state of calamity tonight with wildfires really maxing out the capacity of firefighters there. At least 7 people have been killed in some of the country's worst wildfires in years. I want to show you some of the video. It's horrible, right? People watching the flames eating up their neighborhoods, charring their homes, essentially. The fires are sweeping across tens of thousands of acres, and it's not helping that there's a lot of wind and a lot of heat. The prime minister is now calling on police to redouble the push to find whoever started the fires. Josh Letterman is joining us now. It is such a... We've covered this story on this show even earlier in this week, and still folks there have not been able to get a handle on this to the degree that they would like to. Talk about the progress so far and what's left to come.
Incomplete progress, Hallie. The good news is that the number of active fires has gone down. So you had well over 100. There are now somewhere north of 50 that are still kind of at the end stages, that are burning out, basically, and then a smaller number, probably less than 20, that are active, out of control blazes. That includes Aveiro, which is a district in northwest Portugal that is now really the epicenter for this crisis. Now, the good news as far as the weather is there has been some cooler temperatures and less wind. That has helped firefighters. But the flip side, there's this thick black smoke that is making it really hard for the firefighting air units to be able to operate. And European satellites that have been tracking this say that close to 50,000 acres have already been burned. And as you mentioned, Hallie, authorities in Portugal now believe that arson is responsible for at least some of these fires. The Portuguese prime minister is asking police to try to get to the bottom of who is doing this and put them behind bars. Already about 14 arrests, Hallie.
Talk about the aftermath in the places where they have been able to get a handle on these fires.
Well, interestingly, Portuguese authorities have not released any numbers yet about the extent of the monetary damage to property or even how many people that they had to evacuate. But we are seeing harrowing video coming out of Portugal of these burnt out vehicles, entire parking lots that are full of these charred cars, houses, of course, that have all burnt down. And in many cases, we're seeing highways and trees that several days after firefighting efforts put out the blazes, they are still smoldering. We are also seeing evidence of residents who are trying to put out some of these flames with buckets, with garden hoses, even in some cases taking sticks and trying to hit the fire and the flames to try to literally beat these fires into submission, Hallie.
Josh Letterman, thank you very much for that update, an important one. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the judge overseeing Hunter Biden's federal gun trial has agreed to push back his sentencing date till December. It was supposed to be a few weeks earlier in November. This is after a direct request from Hunter Biden's team so that his lawyers could have more time to get things together. Remember, the president's son was found guilty of federal gun charges back in June. Number 2, dramatic Citizen app video showing a yacht on fire. Look at this in California. Fortunately, nobody on board was hurt. Actually, nobody was on board, so that's helpful, and nobody nearby was hurt. But witnesses saw, look at this, these explosions. And if you said, like, if you're thinking, wait, I thought I saw fireworks, that's because there were fireworks on board that apparently went off as well. Some unused ammo, too, according to the county fire department. The incident also caused a fuel spill, which will take a few days to clean up. Number 3, the CDC is reporting more than 14,000 cases of whooping cough, about 4 times as many as last year this time. Doctors say we may be seeing this because of more vaccine hesitancy since the COVID pandemic. Number 4, police in the UK say a prolific shoplifter is now banned from all but 3 stores there after she was convicted 170 times. 170 convictions. This is video of her in a suspected shoplifting that British officials released back in April. She apparently usually wears disguises to avoid getting recognized, but even with that, police have arrested her nearly 400 times. Number 5, iPhone users in California can now add their driver's licenses to their phones. It can go in your wallet app. Apparently, this would be acceptable at certain businesses and even some TSA checkpoints at big airports in the state. A spokesperson for Apple says the move is a significant step in their view in replacing the physical wallet. Later in the show, major flooding devastating parts of Italy tonight. We'll tell you why they're making history in that area and not the good kind. Diddy tonight is still behind bars after a judge denied his request for bail a second time. And the place where Sean Combs is now locked up is getting a lot of attention, as you might imagine. The Metropolitan Detention Center, the MDC, the only federal jail in New York City, is known for violence, poor conditions, and a string of celebrity detainees. Yasmin Vasugian is there for us tonight. And Yasmin, Diddy's attorneys want him out?
Yeah. They want him out, but so far he's going to be inside those walls, Hal, for the foreseeable future until he goes to trial. Of course, there's going to be some appeals, but nonetheless, a lot happening behind those walls. And Diddy, not the only high-profile person that has served time in this prison, Hal. Take a look.
From his $48 million Miami mansion to hell on earth where chaos reigns. Just some of the words used to describe the Metropolitan Detention Center where Sean Diddy Combs is now being held without bail after pleading not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering charges.
Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct.
He is not the first high-profile inmate to pass through these walls. Ghislaine Maxwell, R. Kelly, Pharma Bro, Martin Shkreli, and crypto fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried, all as they waited for their federal criminal trials, called this jail home. But the conditions of the prison are far from homey, notoriously described as, quote, dreadful, as one judge put it. Some on the bench have even moved away from sending nonviolent defendants there. In April, a group of detainees that prosecutors said were MS-13 gang members in court documents stabbed an inmate 44 times in an attack caught on camera. 2 shivs were recovered from the attack. You see them here. The victim survived. And in the last 3 years alone, 4 inmates have died by suicide. And violence is not the only issue. Accusations of medical neglect, staffing shortages, smuggling of drugs, some allegedly facilitated by employees. At least 6 staff members charged with crimes in the last 5 years, according to the AP. Some accused of accepting bribes and providing contraband.
I've had clients describe NBC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in.
Lance A. Clark is a federal defense attorney who's been there many times.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
Occupy the streets until they get heat.
In the winter of 2019, protests over a power outage left inmates without light or heat for a week in the cold.
I understand how cold it must be in those cells, and not to have any electricity, any lights, and to not be able to communicate with your family is just inhumane.
The prison has about 1,200 detainees and is the only federal prison in the nation's largest city. The DOJ shut down New York City's other federal jail, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, back in 2021, 2 years after Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide there. A Bureau of Prisons spokesman telling NBC News they, quote, take seriously addressing the staffing and other challenges at MDC Brooklyn, adding the director appointed an urgent action team and they've increased staffing.
The MDC has historically had tremendous problems, and the problems aren't resolved.
Combs' lawyers originally hoping he could await trial under house arrest at his mansion, now arguing for him to be moved to a prison in New Jersey in the lead up to this trial, citing the prison's poor conditions, violence, and deaths. On Wednesday, his lawyer said he was being held in a special housing unit with an extra level of security.
Yasmin's back with us now. So what is next? Is he going to be in jail in this facility until the trial begins? Is there a chance he could, get moved earlier than that?
As of this moment, as of this hour, as of today, yes. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to be appealing this thing next to the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to overturn the judge's order here to try and get him actually released to his mansion on $50 million bail, wanting a GPS monitoring system, limited visits from family members, friends, so on and so forth. That is what they're proposing because of course, the violence I talked about in that piece inside these jail walls. They also, in the meantime, Hal, want to get him moved to a jail and/or prison in New Jersey. The judge so far has essentially said that is up to the Bureau of Prisons to make that decision. Nonetheless, it's all going to be on appeals leading up to the trial. His next court appearance, by the way, October 9th. So looking for that, of course, and any decisions coming out from the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on this order.
Yasmin Vasugian live for us there in Brooklyn. Yasmin, thank you. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Italy, huge floods hitting northern Italy today, with this storm just devastating Central Europe. About 1,000 people had to be evacuated overnight. Fire officials say they rescued like 500 people. They did 500 operations. This whole storm system has caused the worst flooding in more than 2 decades in this whole region, and it has been deadly, killing at least 24 people. Out of Thailand, police responding to this scene of a woman, look at this, exhausted, leaning against a door. You see that snake wrapped around her. It is horrific. She says she was doing dishes at home when she felt a really sharp pain in her leg. She looked down to see a huge python. It trapped her, potentially for hours. Pythons, kill their prey by squeezing them. This woman cried for help until a neighbor called the police. She ultimately was freed, thank goodness. She's been treated for bites. And out of Japan, a new robot designed to replace people in dangerous work locations. It kind of works like this. You're seeing some of the video. A real person wearing VR goggles does the movements, which are then synchronized by the robot. It can carry stuff up to 90 pounds. It can even assemble things, put them together. This is it's not science fiction, man. It's already being used in real life by a railway company in Japan. So we'll see if that becomes a trend. Still to come. An American woman's family is calling for her release from a Chinese prison. Why they say she was scammed into a life sentence. Tonight, the family of a Chicago woman is calling for her to be freed from a prison in China, saying she's been there for 10 years because she was scammed. Here's what they say happened to her. We're talking about Dawn Michelle Hunt. She thought she won a free trip to Australia in 2014, but was told she had to pick up a bag of prize documents in China on the way first. The bags she picked up apparently had drugs in them. More than 4 pounds of meth, according to Chinese officials. She was arrested. She was sentenced to life in prison. Her family now says she's very sick behind bars, and they want her home. Watch.
The last time I talked to Dawn was about a year ago. I pray to God to send her back so we will be reunited.
She's one of the more than 300 Americans imprisoned in China right now, with some of their families testifying in front of Congress, pushing for their release. Maura Barrett is joining us now. Where do things stand in the push to get her back home?
Well, Hallie, I should note that a bulk of the information that we have about this situation is coming from Dawn Hunt's family here in Chicago. They're only just speaking out about it now, even though she was originally arrested 10 years ago, because they were scared to speak out earlier because of fear of retaliation. But they just got a letter from Hunt recently detailing some specifics of her medical issues. She apparently has tumors on her uterus, and she doesn't trust the medical situation at the Chinese prison. So they're hoping to get her home to get that medical care. I want you to hear from an interview with her father, Gene. One of our colleagues at WMAQ, the affiliate here, spoke with him earlier today, where he kind of played out how all of this happened 10 years ago.
My daughter's been arrested in China. She's been duped to get there under the pretext that she was a beauty queen and had won a contest. And she told me that she wanted to go to China to get her reward. She said, I checked on the internet, and it's allegedly reported to be a legitimate company.
Her family has been able to visit her, talk to her on the phone occasionally, write letters, but this case hasn't attracted the same attention as, say, Brittany Griner or reporter Evan Gershkovich, obviously, but that was in Russia. This is China. There isn't a bilateral prison trade agreement between the U.S. and China, so that's where things get a little tricky. Now, we had reached out to the State Department. They did confirm that her detention is accurate, and they said that they stand ready to provide consular assistance, which means that they're routinely checking in on her treatment, her health, her safety. They most recently visited in July of 2024. But the thing is here is the U.S. government does not recognize her as one of those wrongfully detained, and that designation is what provides families with special support services that this family's not getting.
Got it. Maura Barrett, thank you for being on top of that story for us. We appreciate it. We've got a lot more to get to here on the show, including when rent costs went up all across the country, one city saw them go down. Why they may have uncovered the roadmap to cheaper housing. Next. To tonight's original now, with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's how much you spend on where you live. That's because we've got some new numbers out today showing that the number of home sales across the country has dropped more than people thought. It's like 4% lower in August compared to last year at the same time. And that sort of lack of movement, right, it's sending home prices high, way high, to a new record high. Right now, the average house, like if you're looking to buy a house, you know this, the average house costs people more than $500,000. You saw what it cost back in 2019, about $376,000. Listen. This is not hot scoops. This is not breaking news. We know how expensive houses are these days. So what's the solution? Our team's taking you to one city that has seen a 0% roughly rise in rents. No rise in the average rent since before the pandemic. It's Minneapolis, where there's a big push to build more. Here's NBC's Brian Chung.
On this block in northeast Minneapolis, there are all types of houses. A yellow one, a white one, a brown one. But it's the blue one that's shaking up the neighborhood. Cody Fisher is the developer behind it.
Yeah, this is Solstice Northeast, 23-unit, 4-story building, ultra energy efficient, solar powered, all electric.
Let's go check it out.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's got a few bells and whistles. Bike racks, dog wash station.
We have 23 units, 22 of them are occupied.
But it's the building's location that makes this apartment complex so unique, because it sits on the lot that was formerly a single-family home.
So this building could not have existed in this neighborhood on this plot 7 years ago?
Absolutely not. It was a combination of zoning and parking requirements. It just wouldn't have been possible.
Possible because of a plan known as Minneapolis 2040. In addition to investing $360 million into affordable rental housing since 2018, Mayor Jacob Fry in the city also sought to change the rules. Literally.
We also wanted to expand the supply generally. That meant sometimes putting up additional density on commercial corridors. Sometimes that meant making a single-family home a duplex or a triplex.
When the city passed the plan, Minneapolis became the first major city in the U.S. to eliminate single-family exclusive zoning. Since implemented, rents across the country have skyrocketed, according to Apartment List data, up 22% nationally. But here in Minneapolis, rents actually fell by 4%. As a city added more than 10% in new housing units.
You build more dense, you can build more cheaply, that is more affordably, and it allows easier access, more affordable access for people who are interested in buying homes.
But it also set off a firestorm.
To turn a home into a 24-unit building is not right.
Impacts on all of our privacy.
Has zero parking. We're against development on this scale.
When we first proposed it, we certainly saw signs popping up all over Minneapolis saying, "Don't bulldoze my neighborhood."
Across the street from the new Solstice Apartments, the sign's a little different. Stop the Northeast land grab. A one-bedroom here rents for $1,700, which not everybody thinks is so cheap.
A little bit controversial was an understatement. The folks on the block really did not want this apartment building here.
Jeremy Whelan lives a block up from the new building and doesn't like the new project either. He says that he worries the building, which didn't come with off-street parking, will make traffic in the area worse.
For some that might, on the surface, think that's a not in my backyard type of view, what would the response be?
Well, for the record, the building over there is in my backyard and I like it, and down there, it's in my backyard and I don't like it. So it's always going to be about the specific instance.
And although Minneapolis 2040 is by name a city measure, Governor Walz and the state legislature moved to protect the plan from litigation. And Walz and Harris are now proposing a bold plan to build 3 million housing units nationwide, in addition to $25,000 in assistance for first-time homebuyers. Even former President Obama hopping on the train to build more at the DNC.
If we want to make it easier for more young people to buy a home, we need to build more units.
Mayor Fry welcomes the national attention.
He has been characterized, the governor, as arguably the first YIMBY, yes in my backyard candidate. Did that YIMBYism come from you in Minneapolis, here in the city?
Well, it would make me feel pretty damn good if it did.
Brian is back. He is joining us now. And Brian, if this plan is working to keep rent prices down, what's the case against it?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there are a number of parties. You heard from the neighbors who say, look, this doesn't fit the character of our neighborhood. We're worried about traffic and parking. But then you also have environmental groups. Interestingly, there were some environmental groups that sued the city of Minneapolis, claiming that the city didn't provide enough evidence that there was going to be a positive environmental impact of all of this. The court actually ended up putting the Minneapolis plan on hold for a number of years before Tim Walz and the state legislature moved to basically protect the plan. Lastly, there's also the home builders who in some cases have a financial incentive not to build more in some areas because maybe that could bring prices down. That would make it less affordable or really economically viable for them to build those properties. There's many different types of people who might oppose this type of thing, but it's interesting to know it's not really on party lines. Minneapolis is a very blue city. You have many Democrats who are in those neighborhoods, deeply blue areas that say, I don't necessarily know if I want this in my backyard.
That's a great point. Brian Chung, thank you very much. Good to see you, as always. That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coming up next, and I will see you back, of course, on Sunday on the Nightly News and back here Monday on NBC News Now. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.